No fighter in the history of boxing has won world titles in more weight classes than Manny Pacquiao. The Filipino legend has captured world titles in 8 weight classes, a remarkable feat for a fighter who turned professional at 106 pounds in 1995. Pacquiao would state that he would put stones in his pockets in order to make that weight limit.
But do you realize he turned pro as a 16-year-old pro? Not even 5 feet tall, not even 100 pounds, and won his first lineal title a couple of years later as a flyweight. Didn't turn pro as a flyweight, won the lineal championship of the world, and then skipped up a couple weight classes and started tearing through divisions.
Pac-Man would win his first world title at flyweight in 1998 before making history by eventually winning the light middleweight title in 2010 to become the first and only 8-weight world champion in boxing. That being said, Pacquiao could have won titles in 10 of boxing's 17 weight divisions, but he never campaigned at junior bantamweight or bantamweight, instead skipping over them weight divisions to capture his second world title at super bantamweight. The start of Pacquiao's historic title run began when he fought for the WBC and lineal flyweight championship of the world. Pac-Man would enter the contest with a record of 23-1 at the time and had no sort of notoriety or recognition in his homeland of the Philippines. This was a young and wild Pacquiao whose power was too much for his opponent, as Pacquiao would show his greatness on this night when he would be down on all 3 of the judges' scorecards before he would punch his way to the top of the flyweight division by capturing the WBC and lineal flyweight championship.
Then down he goes, where there was a cracking body shot in amongst a barrage of blows. Manny Pacquiao has come of age in Thailand. He is a world champion. WBC flyweight title on the line, the title of Shashikul.
And won his first lineal title a couple of years later as a flyweight. Didn't turn pro as a flyweight, won the lineal championship of the world.
After dropping his flyweight title, Manny Pacquiao would jump up 3 weight divisions, coming in as a late place replacement for the IBF Super Bantamweight champion inoue Welterweight, who was looking to use Pacquiao as a tune-up fight before unifying the division himself. Pacquiao was basically unknown when he took the fight with Welterweight on 3 weeks' notice, in place of the injured Enrique Sanchez. Pacquiao on this night would be a revelation as he swarmed Welterweight, who was considered to be the #1 junior featherweight at the time, and the guy who was high up on many people's pound for pound rankings. But Pacquiao would just destroy Welterweight, breaking his nose in the first round and dropping him in the 2nd and 6th, as Pacquiao would steal the show on this night by becoming the IBF Super Bantamweight champion, leaving many fans at ringside wondering what would be next for this new Filipino sensation.
The Philippines, he is a star of astounding proportions, up there with an Ali, a Chavez in their countries.
Sent many top fighters into the ring. And Bill Clancy's seen it up. He's some prospect, Bobby. To me, he's every bit as exciting as Prince Nassim Hamed.
Following 4 title defences of his Super Bantamweight title, Pacquiao moved into a new weight class to take on Marco Antonio Barrera. The lineal featherweight champion was an elite pound-for-pound fighter in the midst of his great run after beating Nassim Hamed to claim the lineage. Pacquiao was seen as a huge underdog going into this contest and went after Barrera like a storm, dropping the Mexican in the 3rd and 11th rounds before Barrera's corner would throw in the towel to end the contest, leaving Barrera and most of all the fans in attendance on this night stunned by Pacquiao's extreme domination. This would be the fight in which the Pacquiao legend was born.
What could he do against Marco Antonio Barrera? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Barrera may be a little long in the tooth, but he's still one of the best ever. Pacquiao, what he did to Barrera was scary, the way he dominated Barrera. It's the kind of fight that I'll never forget watching.
Meeting for the 2nd time after Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez would fight to a draw for the unified featherweight title. Now up at super featherweight, Manny and Marquez would face off again for the WBC crown. After a truly epic contest between the 2 warriors, Pacquiao would barely edge past Marquez by split decision in perhaps the most controversial result of their 4-fight series. Like all of their fights, this would be a tremendous battle, as Pacquiao would drop Marquez with a left hand in the 3rd round, as Pacquiao would capture the WBC and Ring Magazine titles. With Pacquiao now climbing the pound-for-pound ranks, and with greatness on his mind, the Filipino made the move up to lightweight to challenge the WBC champion David Diaz, who had just ended the career of Eric Morales at the time, and with Pacquiao looking to now claim a title in his 5th weight class, and freshened by the news of Floyd Mayweather's first retirement, Pac-Man would look to establish himself as the pound-for-pound king of boxing. In a brutal, one-sided demolition of Diaz, who showed great determination and a huge heart, taking it to Pacquiao. However, Diaz was nowhere near the level of Manny, who displayed a different class of skills, speed and power when he would end the contest in the 9th round. This was the win in which many would believe that Pacquiao could continue his destructive dominance, moving through the weight classes of boxing. Following his demolition of Oscar De La Hoya in a non-title welterweight fight, Pacquiao would move down to challenge the lineal junior welterweight champion Ricky Hatton, who was the #1 fighter in the division at the time and had only suffered defeat at the hands of Floyd Mayweather up at welterweight. Pacquiao was looking to make a statement against Hatton, and he would do just that. With Manny Pacquiao at his devastating best, he would score the highlight knockout of his career following a straight left hand to the chin of Hatton, who would be knocked out cold in the centre of the ring. This victory for Pacquiao was just unforgettable. In his first true welterweight fight, following Pacquiao shredding the faded Oscar De La Hoya, sending him into retirement in a big upset, Manny Pacquiao would challenge the 2-weight world champion and the current WBO welterweight champion Miguel Cotto. Cotto would be viewed as the Pac-Man's true test, with many believing that the two warriors would have an all-out war with one another. However, on this night, Pacquiao had in many fans' eyes the most impressive performance of the Filipino's entire career, after he would destroy Miguel Cotto as he dropped the Puerto Rican in the 3rd and 4th rounds, leaving Cotto busted up. Pacquiao would end the contest in the 12th and final round of their truly tremendous fight. This meant that Pacquiao would now be crowned as the first 7-weight world champion in boxing, surpassing the previous record held by Oscar De La Hoya, who was at the time of the fight a 6-weight world champion like Pacquiao. Now with the Pac-Man entering the apex of his career,
when he obliterated Ricky Hatton, Miguel Cotto, and then Oscar De La Hoya, though that was at 147, was that Pacquiao's peak? Because remember, that's when the Mayweather-Pacquiao hype actually reached fever pitch. Oh my God, these are two of the best fighters we've ever seen, and they're both in their primes, in the same weight class at the same time. We have to see that fight.
After being on a collision course for many years, negotiations for the fight of the century would begin between Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, as the two all-time greats looked to put on a legendary clash. However, after talks between the two fighters would indeed break down, Pacquiao would make one defence of his welterweight title before moving up in weight again to challenge the 3-time welterweight champion Antonio Margarito for the WBC Junior Middleweight Championship of the World. A win here for Manny would mean he would make even more history by becoming boxing's first ever 8-weight world champion. In the history-making 8th title win, Pacquiao was outweighed 17 pounds on fight night, but still laid a savage beating on Margarito in a dominant performance that should have been stopped in the later rounds. Pacquiao steamrolled Margarito for the entirety of their matchup, on his way to becoming the new WBC light middleweight champion of the world.
Here in Cowboy Stadium, the picture appeared, you heard the roar, and Emmanuel Stewart, it's inevitable.
And the millions around the world who wish they could be here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
A much bigger opponent, his biggest opponent ever. What did it show you tonight?
Pacquiao hits a blunt with a big left hand, and then flurries and backs Margarito off again.
I didn't have him losing a single round. All Manny Pacquiao, the worldwide phenomena continues.
Harold Letterman is still given every round in the fight so far to Manny Pacquiao. And obviously the fight's not over, but how good is he, Emmanuel?
I think he's one of the best fighters I've ever saw. And he's what we call a natural.
Pacquiao has his unanimous decision victory. Margarito has a vicious beatdown to remember. His 5th consecutive conquest of a significantly bigger man.
It's the kind of fight that I'll never forget watching. Oh my God, I've rarely seen a performance like that. I mean, when you think about what Pacquiao did from flyweight to 154 pounds, from a teenager till 40 years old, and when you consider the heights he reached.
Following on from these truly historic feats in the sport of boxing, Pacquiao would still go on to be a dominant force in boxing for many years and would leave the sport as a true living legend after he was able to end his career after finally fighting Floyd Mayweather, and he would go on to make one last piece of history when he would dethrone the unbeaten welterweight champion Keith Thurman to become the oldest ever welterweight champion, therefore ending his career as the only 8-weight world champion in boxing history and also being the only fighter to be champion in 4 separate decades to solidify his legendary status.
You're talking about certainly one of the best pound-for-pound fighters of all time. I believe, considering the fact that he's a much naturally smaller fighter than Mayweather, a better pound-for-pound fighter than Floyd Mayweather, and actually a guy who has a case. Whether you think he'd win it or lose it, he has a case. He could submit his resume and say, I want consideration as the best fighter who's ever lived.